Many of you are stuck at the lower ratings because you are very poor at tactics. And an app like chess.com provides you with every single resource by which you can improve your tactics. In my opinion, solving puzzles is the best way to improve your tactical game. In this position, you can see that the black rook and the pawn are supporting each other. But in this position, this check is just checkmate. Black has two pass pawns. Black is just greedy in this position. He has taken that free pawn, but he has left his king in a bit of a pickle. You can see that the white king exerts control over these three squares, and if we somehow deliver a check on this file, then the king is simply mated. See, these may seem very easy, but I bet that most of you are missing this in your daily games. So I recommend you to just review your games after you play them. And Black decided to trade off the queen so that they can slow down the attack. See, the queen was defending the square of g7, and supported by the pawn, the queen lands on the square of g7 and just delivers the checkmate. These are all very beginner level tactics. I don't know how this even happened. Black somehow managed to corner their own king. As you can see, black is just one move away from making another queen, and you will be more or less mated soon if you don't mate the opponent. So in this position, I can restrict his king from having any more legal moves by playing the move h3. After he takes my queen, I will just simply grab his queen back. Here you can see that the king does not have any move, and the rook desperately tries to defend the pawn from going to g4 and delivering a checkmate. But the pawn simply has backup, and this is just check, and once we recapture the queen, it's a stunning and beautiful pawn mate. Black is positionally poor, as you can see from the doubled b pawns. In this position, you can just capture the bishop, and once the piece moves, you can notice that the king doesn't have any single legal move. Then on the d file, the black pawns are controlling many key squares for escape from the white king. By playing this move, you can limit the white king onto the e file, and once you play the move rook e8, it just cures the king and you can capture the rook into a winning endgame. First, just take the knight. So the main intention in this position is to notice that the h2 pawn is very weak and it is only defended by the queen. So after clearing this f file, the queen provides a long diagonal control till the square of c1. So in the square of d2, you can move your rook, and now checkmate is just unstoppable. Here you can see that white has a rook and a knight in exchange for black's queen. But black's queen is very poorly positioned. But if it was black's move, black will just give some checks and try to move their king. In these positions, you should calculate all the different moves that your opponent can play. The obvious move is to look for checks. The move rook a8 gives a check to the opponent, in which they have two options. First of all, If they move to the square of h7, they are checkmated with the move rook h8. If they move to the square of f7, then the move rook f8 is another checkmate. We can notice that this pawn is controlling very key squares from black. This is the way. And once they move into the corner, the knight aids the rook. The knight is protected by the pawn, and these three pieces provide a beautiful checkmate. First of all, we can observe that the rook is attacking our queen. The king has no legal move. Therefore, we will think that this is just checkmate. But it's not, because this rook can simply capture the knight. Then we can think that this is a checkmate, but then it simply recaptures with the bishop. We can just sacrifice our queen on this square. Watch my calculation. So once they take, we can deflect the queen away from the defense of the bishop with this check, knight to c2. And here the king is boxed in by its own pawns, and there are no defenses against the beautiful pawn mate on b4. In this position, you can notice that if we open up the h file and put a rook on h8, it is actually checkmate. The queen attacks the squares g1, f2 and e3. Because of this very strong diagonal control, if we manage to land a piece on the square h8, it is actually checkmate. So here we need to open up that file by sacrificing the knight. In this position, the king has no other choice to move, and so they should capture with the pawn on h2. Once the pawn moves to g3, the file is opened, and now we just have to bring the rook back. Even if the queen is pinned to the king, the black queen still controls that diagonal. So the move rook h8 is just a checkmate. See, white is up an extra knight, but white is on the verge of a checkmate, because the black queen and the black rook are controlling the d and c files. In this position, we have to sacrifice our queen, and this puts the rook on a square when it is only defended by the king. So once the rook moves to c8 with check, the king is forced to take it. If the king moves to squares like b6, we will just capture the queen, and we are still up an extra knight, and black cannot checkmate us. So after this move, they are forced to capture us, and once the king takes, it is just a royal fork, and we win the queen, the rook and the game. And that's all for today. Hope you enjoyed.